Welcome to Parenting Adventures. We help parents empower their kids to build a growth mindset so they can tackle any size challenge that school and life can throw at them, from grades to bullying and struggles at home and school and everything in between. Whether you're in the elementary alphabet stage or navigating high school credits, we're diving into how you can relate and influence positive action. Stick around for real solutions, expert tips, and stories that resonate and inspire. Ready for personalized mindful tutoring? Head to tutorteach.ca/tutoring to see how our 9 cornerstones to success have helped over 3,000 students achieve their goals. Now, let's dig into the episode.
Have you ever struggled to feel confident in where to send your kids during the summer months? The worries about whether or not they will be safe, nurtured, and have fun can heavily weigh on a parent. I'm your host, Lara and today we're diving deep into that very concern with an expert who knows exactly how to guide us through it. Our guest today is Nadine Kereliuk, a professional human ecologist with a deep passion for creating connections and spreading awareness about the critical social issue of child maltreatment and general safety. Nadine is the community education lead at the Zebra Center in Edmonton, Alberta, where she dedicates her efforts to connecting with various groups and communities, providing a listening ear and an open heart to those impacted by child abuse. In this episode, we chat with Nadine about how parents can find safe summer camps and daycares, what red flags to watch out for that might indicate a child is experiencing abuse, and how to have those tough yet crucial conversations with your kids in an age-appropriate way. Get ready to take some notes and feel more empowered as a parent this summer. Let's dive in. Thank you so much for joining us today, Nadine. So to start, can you give our audience some background on yourself?
Absolutely. So, my name's Nadine. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a professional human ecologist. So, I actually look at humans and their families and their near environments and how to help them thrive. And I am also the community education lead at the Zebra Child and Youth Advocacy Center here in Edmonton. So, at the Zebra Center, we support kids who've been experiencing or have experienced abuse, and we make sure that they have someone to walk alongside them in these very adult systems, like the criminal system and the justice system, and any investigations, and of course, help them through their healing process.
Amazing work and a very worthy cause for sure. So can you share a little bit more? I know you touched on it lightly already, but can you share a little bit more about Zebra and dive into your role a little bit more, what specifically your day-to-day looks like and how you support the children that come to the Zebra organization?
Yeah, so the Zebra Center is a nonprofit and a registered charity, but we work alongside lots of different professionals like the Edmonton Police Service, RCMP, Children's Services, Alberta Health Services, and Alberta Justice and Solicitor General. So we work with a very multidisciplinary team. And the nonprofit charity side is really the glue that holds everybody together. And we have created the Zebra Center because we took inspiration from the wild. So whenever there is a herd of zebras and they sense danger in their environment, we have the adult zebras that form a protective circle around the young and vulnerable so that any dangers around them, they can't tell where one zebra starts and one zebra ends. All they see is stripes. So what we like to do here is surround kids with stripes because all of our adults here have different professions, we have different experiences, we have different backgrounds, but we all want to keep kids safe. So that's what we do here. But alongside that, in my role specifically, I go out into the community to make sure that other adults know about the Zebra Center and know how they can be part of the herd and surround kids with safety and stripes. So sometimes I'm in schools, some kids might see me there. Sometimes I'm chatting with professionals who work with kids, or I'm just chatting with some caregivers, guardians, parents after schools or in libraries. And essentially, we're all talking about keeping kids safe and our duty to report child abuse and what that looks like if you are caught in those systems.
That is an incredible cause. And I love the, not even analogy, but the real, I guess, semblance of zebras all coming together and that you don't see a beginning and an end. And That's an amazing way to represent your guys' team because you all have the same goals in mind and you want the children to feel like they have a big pillow around them and that they're safe. It doesn't matter who they turn to. So that is really, really interesting.
Yeah, so sometimes when I'm talking to youth and I'm talking about finding your safe person, a safe adult, I get questions about what if I don't have a safe adult? I'm like, you know what? There's lots of adults everywhere that I know that would likely help you. Sometimes they can go into different stores and ask for help, and they have some workers there that can help kids or are needed to help kids, or talking to different people in the community. There's lots of different zebras around, and we just want to make sure that those zebras know what to do whenever they hear what's going on with kids.
And how do children find their zebras? How do they find the zebra center? Are they brought to you by another adult? Do you find them in the system by kind of looking for certain signals and alerts? How does that come to be?
Yeah. The Zebra Center itself doesn't take any public referrals. So, with our close partnerships with law enforcement and children's services, those referrals come from there. So, most of the kids that come through our our doors, they are experiencing an investigation of a criminal matter. So typically it's when they've been hurt or if they've witnessed someone get hurt and there are violent crimes that are happening. So that's when they come through our doors. But when we talk to kids about identifying your safe zebra, it's really how those people make you feel. So talking to kids about like, it doesn't matter what title they have, it's just how they make you feel inside.
That is a tough job that you're in. And I mean, everyone at the Zebra Center, we need more of those zebras around so that kids feel safe wherever they are. I just love the mission. It's so beautiful. So as summer approaches, a lot of parents are starting to look at summer camps and daycares for their kids. So do you have any tips for parents on finding a place that's safe and fun? And more to that, what kind of questions should parents be asking when they're scoping out that those summer camps and daycares?
I love that question. There's so many fun activities that are going on in our community, and the last thing we want is for some young person to get hurt. So while parents are looking for different activities or daycares or summer camps, it's really important to understand what that organization's mission and vision is, and if it aligns with your family values. That would be my top pick. But it's also really important to understand what their ratio of supervision looks like and what their policies and procedures look like if somebody does get hurt or if there's a tricky person. Do these workers, volunteers know what to do when kids disclose to them? Or do the kids know if someone is making them feel uncomfortable, what steps to do? Like, what are those safety protocols? So, knowing those things are really important when you are going into different environments, especially the supervision piece.
Interesting. I know for me, I have 4 kids and I've never really known exactly what to look for with summer camps. I always want to know, do the adults that are there have background checks? Do they have their CPR, their first aid? I think those are commonly asked questions, but I think you're going one layer deeper to say, we need to go a little further. We need to look into specific incidents or situations and how they'll be handled because it's a group of kids who've never been together before. And have never been with these adults. And so how do they mitigate those conflicts or those surprise situations? That would be interesting to hear how they respond to that.
And unfortunately, with criminal record checks, yes, they're great, but there are some tricky people out there who, let's say, haven't gotten anything on their record. So even if they went to go get a criminal record check, nothing would come up. So they would seem to be on paper a safe person. But with these tricky people, sometimes we need to have a little bit more training and making sure that although your record check came back clean, you are well equipped to make sure that kids stay safe.
That's a good point. And the timing of those background checks can change too, because you can go get a background check and then your situation changes a week later. And that background check is still valid. So yeah, and so when parents are signing their kids up for summer camps or daycares, they're in a position to be the interviewer and ask questions and make sure that all of their checkbox are checked before they enroll their children.
Absolutely. So they can be the person interviewing the agency to make sure that they have their T's crossed and I's dots, and understand the importance of knowing when to inform parents as well. What kind of instances do you as a parent want to know that happened? Sometimes there's these incidences that do happen, but it doesn't sound as critical, so they don't inform parents. But then you hear it from your child saying that they saw this, and that can get concerning. So you want to know when they are notifying parents and what kind of incidences that they see in order to notify them.
And children, they come running home and sharing their version of every story that they've seen all day. And so I know with my boys, they're very animated when they come home from even school, and they'll tell me these stories that I almost have to be very sure that what they're saying is true from beginning to end there. But you have to listen to your kids because they're also very transparent at a young age. For a lot of parents, choosing the right childcare can feel overwhelming with so many options and so many factors to consider. So, what are some key things parents should look out for to make sure their kids are in good hands during the summer months? So, the daycare thing is a little bit more long term, but what about those summer camps? They're a little bit more fleeting, they're short term. Parents are putting in tons of criteria. Well, at least I am with mine is, it's interest based, hobby based. Maybe they have a friend who's going to be there, location, how close it is, the hours that it's being offered, some of the activities they may have outlined. Those are the superficial components of a summer camp. But if we were to go a layer deeper, what would you say is some criteria parents should consider when putting their child in a summer camp?
For those short-term activities, um, looking into different criteria around keeping kids safe is almost the same thing. We want to know the ratio of supervision, how many adults are in the room, also knowing what kind of training these adults have. So, yes, the CPR certificates and all of those are really great, but also knowing, are they equipped to handle any type of disclosures? Are they equipped to handle any conflicts between kids? What are their policies and procedures around um, restrictions? So sometimes you need to have kids separate, but what does that look like? Are they in separate rooms? Are they in different programming? Does that mean they're in different activities? What does that look like? So knowing how they react to those everyday issues that will come up during the summer months. And again, you mentioned that these kids are going to be put together for the first time. There's going to be some personalities that don't clash very well. So how are they going to make sure that everybody has fun, but everyone stays safe? So asking those types of questions are really great to look into whenever you are talking to them. But also understanding, whenever you're thinking about these groups, yes, you want to know the ratio of adults to young people, but also who are the young people that are going to be getting involved? What are the age ranges that they're going to be in? Because developmentally, they are at different stages. And sometimes it's best to keep them with a younger or around the same age rather than older, and vice versa. So it again depends on what your family needs are and what you want for your kids to get out of this experience. So knowing how many people are in each group, and knowing sort of who the demographic is that they're going to be interacting with.
There's a lot of consideration that goes into those summer camps, especially when parents still have to keep working over the summer. And so it's kind of a fight or flight situation of what to do with your children when they're at a younger age. And so, really putting all those factors into consideration is so important. It's a good time to be picky. When our kids come home from their first day of camp, would you suggest any questions to ask them to see how the day went that would help guide the experience? Every day when the kids come home, you say, "How was your day? What did you do? Did you have fun? Did you make any new friends?" Again, surface level questions that kids are happy to answer. But do you think that we should go a little bit deeper and ask questions like that would help us have a better picture of how the camp was led, considering we can't be there physically?
It's great to focus on those positive aspects and seeing if they have made friends, if they did have fun, but also help them resolve any conflict. So we know that there could be less adults than kids. And so sometimes that hands-on interaction might not be there if they do have a conflict. So asking your kids, hey, was there a situation that made you feel uncomfortable? Or is there a tricky person that you need help talking about? And talking about what they can do the next day that they go there to again enhance their experience, but also teach them how to interact with people that may make them feel uncomfortable or situations that they're not exactly sure how to act in. So helping them through that helps them in the long run as well as what they're doing in that summer activity.
It definitely prepares them for situations outside of those short-term camps, which is necessary.
And even if they don't have any tricky people or uncomfortable situations, it's almost like practicing as if there were. So practicing that and getting them to brainstorm what they could do, what they feel comfortable doing, would help them whenever that kind of situation does come up.
Summer break is such a great time for kids to relax and have fun, but it can also come with some risks. Things like increased screen time, less supervision, and spending more time out in the community. What are some common risks kids face during the summer in particular, and how can parents prepare and mitigate these risks?
Yes. Summertime is always really fun. Although there is those risks like less supervision, more screen time, and just being out in the community because the our daylight is pretty long now, so kids could be out for quite a long time with their friends and whatnot in the community. So talking to kids about that higher risk and making sure that they're aware of their surroundings is a really good lesson to be learning at a young age, even where they are identifying things that could be potential danger, and knowing how to mitigate those risks. So, if they do see a tricky person, if you don't feel great, maybe you should cross the street and walk on that side of the street. Or if somebody is asking you to help them find their lost puppy and you don't know them, maybe and that makes you feel uncomfortable, maybe that's not the place to be helping them and you need to get a safe adult to help them. So practicing how to identify different hazards and options about how to mitigate any type of those risks are great. But for other things like online time, screen time, um, I know that that's very popular, and along with our youth right now, youth, but also young adults, that's where people are finding their connections. So we've been a very digital world, and we're going to be continuing to be a very digital world. And that's where people are finding connections. But talking to young people about, sometimes when you talk to someone online and you don't know them offline, they could be someone that you don't know, or they could be someone that might be lying to you. So making sure that they know not to give out any information about where they live, who they are, and be very restrictive about that kind of information because we don't know where that information is going to go. So that is online, and sometimes tricky situations come up online as well. So if they see something that makes them feel uncomfortable or is confusing, do they know how to react to that situation? Do they know that they can come to their caregivers and talk about it, even though it makes them feel uncomfortable to talk to a grown up about it? And knowing that as grown-ups, we should be prepared to answer those questions, and have that conversation with them rather than a one-way telling you what is right and what is wrong, because we don't know what's going on in their head either. And when I talk about summertime, there's some older youth who are getting into the babysitting stage and they're starting to develop their babysitting businesses. So there are some tips and tricks there as well. So making sure that you're not posting your contact information publicly, um, to people that you don't know quite yet, making sure that your caregivers know the contact information of the family you're babysitting for. Maybe rely on friends of friends, rather than complete strangers that you're babysitting for. So someone that you sort of know, and making sure that your parents know them too. So there's that stuff that could happen before babysitting, but also some tips for staying at home alone, because that's also happening in the summer, as well as when you're babysitting is important too. Like knowing your emergency contact numbers, or making sure that the door is locked and you're not opening the door unless you know who's coming. Um, and having a way of calling a caregiver or an emergency number if there is an emergency. And what does an emergency look like?
So much to consider there. I really like just back to the babysitting considerations. I don't think I ever thought of that because when I was a kid and was babysitting, it was my parents' friends' kids or school kids. And, the parents would drive us to and from. And it's changed a lot since then. And I've seen a lot of Facebook pages that are for babysitters, but you don't know who's on those pages. And so you're putting it out there. I'm X years old and these are my hobbies and interests. I live here. That's a lot of little nuggets of information that someone who's unsafe, who wouldn't be considered a safe adult, can take and run with. So, really good advice there because that's how kids get their names out there now for babysitting. And so, I like the idea of the 6 degrees of separation rule where, if it's a friend of a friend or a parent's friend's or colleague's daughter, like it's something like that, at least there's a little bit of a safety net there.
Yeah. And making sure that when you are babysitting, that you have an out too. So if you're babysitting and something strange is happening and you don't like it, is there a code word that you can call your parents and they can come help you navigate that situation?
Yeah, that's really, really good advice. And yeah, I mean, depending on how old your children are, they could be supervised less. And because as we spoke about already, parents still have to go to work. And so maybe their teenagers or preteens are staying home alone. And that's a lot of time for them to be by themselves. And so they need to know how to use their time wisely and safely. And I always tell my kids, they're younger, but just follow your gut, follow your intuition. If something seems off, there's a reason for it.
Absolutely. And you know your kids best too. So you know what makes them feel uncomfortable. You know what you've already talked to them about, and you're already instilling those values in them. So if something makes them feel uncomfortable, then they should probably let somebody know.
And it starts at a very young age to be having those open conversations and setting those boundaries and making sure that they feel comfortable, whether it's good or, what they think would be bad or, they might get in trouble if they tell you something. It's really creating those open lines of communication so that they feel welcome to share what happened. So, switching gears a little bit here, it's important for parents and caregivers to be reminded that abuse can happen anywhere. What are some warning signs parents and caregivers should be aware of that might indicate a child is experiencing abuse?
Mm. Yeah, so we at the Zebra Center talk about recognizing signs of abuse all of the time. So it falls under mental, physical, and you can really tell if a child has been hurt. Not necessarily, but if there's been that drastic change of their personality, of their demeanor, of their interests, and knowing what their baseline is important so that you know what it looks like when there are some changes. So it's easier to spot some of those physical indicators, like the broken bones, the bruises, burns, injuries in areas that there shouldn't be injuries in, or injuries that don't line up with the child's play. So, or their development. So looking at that is a lot easier, whereas identifying their differences whenever they're behaving or how they're reacting to some things like their interests. That could be a little bit challenging if you haven't had that relationship with the young person. But it doesn't necessarily mean that if you find all of these indicators and you think that there is someone hurting them, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are being hurt. It just means there should be some more conversations with that young person. Because again, things happen, kids get hurt, kids play. Um, and so we need to be asking those questions about like, how did this happen? How did that make you feel? And see where they're leading that conversation. Again, if they have been hurt wherever they are, then we are letting them lead that conversation with the words that they know. And we're listening actively and we're not blaming them for anything that has happened to them. Any kid under the age of 18 or anything like that, no one ever asks to be hurt. So these kids know that they should have a safe and healthy relationship and knowing what that looks like. So again, talking to kids about showing them what these healthy relationships look like, and what we expect from their healthy relationships puts into play what would make them feel so that something isn't right.
Yeah, I mean, that's really good advice, and I think it would be hard to pinpoint exactly what's going on with them, so having an open ear is the first step for sure, and a safe place for them to share their experiences. If they feel a sense of judgment or lack of trust in their adult, then they're just not going to share what happened. So again, it starts really young to build that trust and that foundation with your kids. So if a child confides in a teacher or another adult about experiencing abuse, what's the best way for that adult to respond and handle the situation safely? And maybe even more importantly, what shouldn't they say or do?
Ah, um, a lot of times it's really hard to remain calm and neutral as the adult because a lot of times we care about these kids, especially as a teacher when you see them all the time and you care about them, you want to know what happened, you want to do the investigating, but that's not your job. That's not where your skills lie, nor does it legislatively lie with your role either. So in that moment, if kids are sharing with you what has happened, it's really important to make sure that you are listening actively, that you are doing it in a private setting as well. So we don't need other kids to know what's going on. We don't need other kids seeing this other person react to talking to you. So you're keeping things private, and we're validating their feelings too. So sometimes they are feeling sad and they might shed some tears. Sometimes they're angry and they're swearing up a storm. Now's not the time to bring out the swear jar. Just let them feel their feelings. And we're letting them tell us what has happened. And we're taking that in as the adults. And then it's our duty to see if there is some sense of harm, if there is intervention that needs to be made. So, under the Child and Youth Family Enhancement Act, there's adults all over Alberta that actually have that obligation to report any suspicion of child abuse. So there is some ways to report, whether that's to children's services, to police, or maybe to Crime Stoppers or Cyber Tip, which is for online crimes. And you can report that way. But one of the most important things that help a child's resiliency and their hope is being there and believing them and letting them know that they are supported and that they are safe. And what we need to do is communicate how we're going to make them safe. We can't promise anything, so we can't say that, oh, the person that hurt you is going to pay for what they've done with consequences. We can't guarantee that, so we can't promise that. We can't promise that they're going to feel okay by the end of the day, because you know what, if you're not feeling okay, then that's fine too. So that we avoid making any promises, but being timely is really important whenever we are listening and then following up with actions to make sure that these kids are safe and stay safe. So just to reiterate, as adults, it's not our job to investigate. It's our job to support and believe them and make sure that they know that they can trust us.
Do you find that adults who are given this information from kids don't know when the appropriate time or what the severity of what they're telling us would be to report? I know that there could be a hesitation to report, and just like kids are worried about getting in trouble if they tell their parents something, an adult might worry about their role in that child's life or in that family's life if they were to report. So what's that line? How do they know? Is there any type of guidance? Are there like steps for them to take? Is there a checkbox list for them to say, okay, now it's time for me to report? Like how do they know what should be reported and what should not be?
That is a very good question. And there's lots of barriers that prevent people from disclosing what they've experienced, but also reporting. So I know with kids, sometimes they're afraid that they're going to get in trouble, but sometimes they're afraid that there's going to be rumors spread around the school or spread around that summer camp. So that's a way that they might not disclose. And it actually takes an average of 3 years for kids to be holding on to their secrets of abuse before they tell a safe adult about what has happened. So it is quite a long time because it takes a lot of bravery to do that. But for adults, everyone has their own experience as well, especially whenever they have seen something in the past or if they've experienced something. So the hesitancy to report, I understand, that could be there, and sometimes people don't wanna get into anybody else's business, or they're afraid of the repercussions because this is a very high reputational reputational family that you're dealing with, and you don't want to create any havoc. But we don't know the entire picture. Whenever kids are telling us their experience, um, we only know that one puzzle piece. And that one puzzle piece might be that final puzzle piece in the whole picture that gets this kid some extra support or extra safety measures, or gets the caregiver some extra safety measures, and we don't know that. So if we are doing our part, even though it might not sound like a crime that should be turned into a Netflix series, it could just be information that children's services or police are keeping on file, just so that if more puzzle pieces come together, they have more things to look at to understand the whole picture of that child.
We're starting to see too in the media more people coming forward about their claims of abuse or as adults or otherwise. And so a lot of them are kind of claiming that they're speaking up now versus back when it happened because they want to inspire others to speak up when it happens. And so, we always talk about social media and how it can really drag society down, but that to me is very uplifting to see people speaking out and saying, this happened to me. I'm going to be speaking out about it. And now this is my encouragement to you to speak out about it if it happens to you.
Absolutely. The Canadian Centre for Child Protection actually came out with a stat, where they've found that only 70% of people who've experienced childhood trauma come forward to share during their adulthood or not at all. And then the 30% are the kids who are sharing during that childhood and getting that support while they're still kids. So if we're thinking of about the 70% who wait until adulthood, or they wait or they don't share at all, sometimes they're missing out on that critical support that they can get as young people. So it's really neat to see them come forward now, and share their story, and it a lot of times it inspires people to do different things. I know that we've had some volunteers who've had similar experiences and want to give back, so that's why they're volunteering with us. Some staff member have their own stories, or even some of our partners have their stories as well that inspire them to do the work that they do and really advocate for these kids.
That's a really drastic statistic that you just provided. 70% live in the dark for X amount of time or forevermore. And that is really, really sad. And so having the Zebra Center there to wrap their arms around people, children and youth younger is such a huge asset to the community. I mean, it gives them a safe place.
Yeah, yeah, and hopefully the stigma about talking about child abuse will lessen as we feel more comfortable with the topic, and we feel more comfortable knowing that those crimes are out there and they're happening to kids in our city and in our broader community.
So like you said, talking to kids about tough topics like abuse can be a really challenging thing to navigate. It's crucial, but it's hard. So how can parents approach these conversations in a way that's age appropriate, not scary, while making sure kids know what to do if something does happen?
Yeah, it's not a one-time talk. Like the birds and the bees, it's not a 1 hour talk about that, and that makes everybody feel uncomfortable. It's throughout their lifespan as we're talking to them. When we see tricky people, or we're talking about knowing your emergency numbers, memorizing your caregiver's numbers, just little things like that. And it all starts at a young age too. You can have them age appropriate, where you are telling kids about their body and using the correct anatomy terms, so that whenever they do share something, you know exactly what they're talking about. And the difference between secrets that you speak and secrets that you keep. So some secrets are really great to keep because they're surprises and there's always an end to it, versus secrets that you speak where there's an adult who's telling you not to tell anyone and it's making you feel uncomfortable. We do have some resources that kind of go over some root safety strategies, that typically start at a younger age, but it's up to the caregivers to really start talking about whatever things they want to, depending on how they want their household to look like. Maybe they had an incident about speak secrets and keep secrets already, and we want to talk about surprises and the difference between that kind of surprise versus a secret that shouldn't be kept. Or maybe we should be talking to them about what they see online and whether or not that is something that could happen in their daily life. So, what I'm going with that is that if they see something on TV and there's an example there, it's really great to have those conversations by referring back to the TV show or movie so that you're not talking about them in particular. They're not feeling like they're in trouble, but we're talking about the movie or we're talking about the TV, the book, and see what they would do if they were in that type of situation.
Smart, and that's right on trend with what kids like to talk about anyways, is talking about what they're watching and reading up on and stuff. So, yeah, I mean, I guess there's no one way of approaching this, but your tips definitely shed some light on how to, again, navigate a really hard topic and one that's very foreign to a lot of people. They don't know how to approach it, and perhaps they didn't experience that themselves as a child, and then they see a child experiencing it, so it feels really strange to them or not something that they're comfortable going with. And like you said, you talked about the birds and the bees being an uncomfortable topic. I do think that we have a generation of progression, and I think that more parents are talking about this at a younger age and talking about things that perhaps the older generation didn't talk to us about. And so I think that one thing that's been really neat to see is other parents opening the door to those conversations and letting kids explore those topics a little bit younger now.
Yeah. And again, it's your family, you're the expert of your own family. So, although there's other people who are teaching their kids certain things, maybe you don't agree, and that's okay. There's no real parenting handbook. It's just everyone's perspective, and you pick what's right for yours.
We always say that every family has their own dictionary. And so our dictionary might look different than our neighbor's dictionary. And so, we might be comfortable talking about a topic that the neighbor might not be, and vice versa. And so we teach our children personally boundaries that what we talk about with them might not be something that their peers have heard about, and they might talk to you about something you've never heard about, and that's okay. That's what makes the world go round. We're all different and we learn from each other, right? So yeah, but it's really neat to hear little ones conversations going on now, and how they really are sponges, aren't they?
They are, and access to internet, they are absorbing so much information.
I know. I don't think my kids will ever know what an encyclopedia is. Well, this has been really, really good information. And again, it's a tough topic, but I think that it's so important because of how hard it is, that sometimes adults don't know who to ask about this or where to go. So I think that you gave a really good synopsis of how to approach the upcoming months, but just adulthood with children in general. And so really good resources. So one of the things at the top of our conversation, you had mentioned that you started off by volunteering at the Zebra Center, and then, you've stayed ever since. So for any of our listeners who want to contribute to this Zebra Center or volunteer themselves or be able to make their own mark, where would we send them? What kind of information could we give them?
I would check out our website. It's just Zebra Center, spelled the Canadian way, so it's re.ca. And we have lots of information there about the different volunteering opportunities. There's lots of different roles. In the summertime, if you do have free time, we are looking for some folks who want to help out with events. So a lot of the times it's safety events or fundraising events, and it's just spreading awareness about the Zebra Center, but also child abuse. So again, getting rid of that stigma and making sure that other adults know what to do whenever they see or hear someone get hurt. So that's really great to do that. There's also a donation button there as well. We are so excited to announce that we are moving into a new building this summer. So that's going to be pretty busy, but we've been in the same building for about 22 years now, and we have outgrown our space. And so to provide the best services that we can for the families that come through our doors, we need to be moving into a much bigger space to best suit their needs as well. So any dollar helps, any amount helps, and any ideas in any way help as well. So if they want to check things out, go to our website, follow us on social media. It's just Zebra Center on Instagram or Facebook or X. That's where we can be found.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to share more about the Zebra Center, but more so about the initiatives that are taking place and how we can protect our youth a lot more and the signs that we need to look out for. So I really appreciate this conversation. It's been really telling and informative, and we're just happy to have the Zebra Center in the community to help our youth out. So thank you for all the work that you do.
Thank you for chatting with me. It's always great to talk about safety.
And that's a wrap for this episode. Thanks so much for joining us on Parenting Adventures. Remember, you're not alone in this journey, and we're always here to help. Parenting is like trying to fold a fitted sheet. It seems impossible at first, but with enough determination, you can make it work. Kind of. If you're ready for the next step, visit tutorteach.ca/tutoring for personalized mindful tutoring and discover how we've helped over 3,000 students reach their goals. Until next time, keep calm and fold on.